To my dear princesses, self-worth is a precious treasure.
How do you feel? You have the number one album in the country, and I remember saying, I've never been more unhappy in my life. Let's say you spend 20 years of your life working towards a goal that's going to solve everything, and nothing changes. That's when you get hopeless.
Best-selling author and host.
The number one health and wellness podcast.
On Purpose with Jay Shetty.
Who have you created? Like, who are you? Like, at the core of it, how do you see yourself? I think we live in a world today where people create who we are to us in our own minds. Our families and friends create us. The media we consume creates us. And I think everyone will agree that we have so many influences, but who's the you you're trying to create or have tried to create over the last few decades?
I don't know. Trying would be the word I would use. I would say I'm true to whoever's inside there. I don't look at the outside very much. I look inward and try to focus on what do I feel, what am I seeing, in the hopes that by sharing what's going on in me, it maybe resonates with someone else. I can't predict what someone else would like, and I don't think anybody can. So if I'm true, authentically true to myself, that's the best chance of someone else liking something. So I would say tuning into myself and being honest with myself, and anything I can do to get closer to understanding what I like and why I like it, and what I don't like and why I don't like it, is helpful in the work that I do.
Yeah, I love that idea of almost like a personal check-in or a sense check. And it's we do it after we eat food. Like, you know whether you liked a restaurant or you didn't like a restaurant, or
it's automatic.
It's automatic.
It's funny because I've been asked about, like, how can you be so confident in your opinion? It's like, if you taste food, how confident can you be if you like it or you don't like it? It's so clear. It's so face value.
Yeah.
And I think we tend to overthink and put layers on top of something as simple as, it tastes really good, I like it. Or, you know what, this one's not for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. And why do you think it is, though, that over the years we've all, as humans, from your perspective, your opinion, I'd be fascinated to know, you've worked with so many people who also make things that are fascinating to billions of people on the planet, right? We all experience what it feels like to get 5-10 people to laugh at a joke or listen to something we do, but when you're creating at that scale, what in your opinion has made us so addicted to wanting to become someone that people like and often go against who we truly are? You just said you like to sense that authenticity and feel how you feel. A lot of people are scared of that. A lot of people would rather mold and become malleable and evolve and become who people want them to be. Why do you think that is?
People like to be accepted. People want to be accepted. And I'm suggesting in the book that the best way to be accepted is to be yourself. It's not to change yourself to what someone else thinks. First of all, you don't really know what someone else thinks. And if you're not genuine to yourself, there's like nothing is there. It's just a projection or a mask. It's not true. And there's something about authenticity. Like, I get to work with artists, some of whom have very different ways of seeing the world than me. And I support their vision 1,000,000%, even though whatever they're talking about I may be diametrically opposed to what they're talking about. But I support them 1,000,000%, and anything I can do to support them getting their message across the clearest they can, I support that. The only way we can learn anything is through the reality of seeing what's around us and learning there are these different points of view around us. If we're all thinking the same thing, it's boring. Why would we make anything if everyone thinks the same thing? What makes us interesting are the differences. And even the imperfections. The imperfections are what makes us humans, what makes us what we are. It's like there's so much talk today about ChatGPT and AI. It's like, it's a different thing than a human sharing their own experience, warts and all. That's what we love. We love. You know, you may hear a song about someone who has terrible heartbreak, and you may not be experiencing terrible heartbreak, but hearing them honestly talk about a human experience, even one that we're not having, can make us cry, can make us resonate with them, can give us a better understanding of the world.
Absolutely.
And we're not all everything, we're all only us. Each of us is ourselves.
Yeah, one thing when I was reading your book, it reminded me of something else I read a while ago, and what I read said that the Japanese say we have three faces. One face that we show the entire world. The second face is the face that we only show our family and friends. And the third face, they say, we show no one at all. Maybe not even ourselves sometimes, we don't even. But what you're saying is almost like when we tap into that essence and become that self, that's where all this beauty and imagination and creativity stems from.
Yeah, it seems to be the most interesting and the most particular. In a sea of information, the more yours is personal, the more it's not like hers or his or theirs. It's yours.
Yeah.
And for all of us, we get more of a sense of reality. Even if our views are different than everyone else's, it still helps us understand this is this place that we're in, where there are these different views. It's interesting. When I speak to someone who has a different view on anything, I always want to learn more. How did you get there? What can I learn from you? I never assume that I know anything.
Were you always like that, or were there experiences in your childhood that informed that? Because I feel like there are a lot of people, more generally speaking, and I don't like to stereotype, but just as an overall sense, a lot of the reasons why we struggle with doing what you just said is defending our viewpoint gives us a sense of safety and security, and we feel vulnerable if someone else's viewpoint that seems opposite to ours could be true. So that's one reason. The second is we generally struggle as humans to entertain two opposing ideas. We struggle to understand the nuance that someone can be kind but also be assertive, or someone can be complex yet really compassionate. Like, there can be these paradoxes that exist. I was reading recently about how black and white TVs are not really black and white. They're shades of gray. There is no black and white pixel. It's really, really minute shades of gray that are changing. So were you always that way, always that curious? Did that start somewhere? Does that come from parents? Where did that come for you? I'm intrigued.
I would say I've always been open-minded. Early in my career, I probably had more of a view of I know how to do it. Like, I know my way. And my way was fine. But over the years, I've realized that my way isn't necessarily the best way. It's just one way. And there are many other ways that are great. I was a vegan for 22 years, and now I'm mainly carnivore. When you've really committed to a vegan lifestyle, it's very difficult to break out of it. And for about a year, I believed that eating meat was the healthiest thing I could do, but I couldn't do it because I was vegan. I was committed to being a vegan. So it's a perfect example because it was something I was dedicated to for a long period of time. I had new information. It was hard to change. It was hard to break out of it. But as we get new information, we have to evolve. How can we live in a belief? If you believe the same thing that you believed 20 years ago about everything, I don't know that you're living.
And so we've got to have that openness and the ability to question.
Curiosity about what's it like if my view of the world is wrong. What does someone else know? What can I learn from? Not to disregard what someone else thinks. Why do they think that? I know there's something I can learn from someone who sees it differently than me, and I want to understand it.
Yeah,
So we are
and that's
starting
exactly
to
why I
see
asked you about your past, because I feel that I always try and study someone's past in order to understand how they came to a conclusion, or even their behaviors. Often the people that I feel act in ways that seem unreasonable or ways that I don't agree with, when I track back and look at their past, I can often be like, oh, there are the dots, and they can probably see them too, of why they've chosen that path. Not that that path is right or wrong. It takes a lot to go beyond right and wrong because these constructs are so, and that's what I feel this book does. This book in itself breaks the construct of what a book is, right? Like that, when I picked it up, I was assuming that I was going to read a memoir or like stories and tales. I assumed that's what it would be in my belief system of what a book is by a prominent figure who's had a life such as yours. And then I opened it up and I was like, wait a minute, this is not what I was expecting. And I'm seeing like poetry, and I'm seeing like rhymes, and I'm seeing just short reflection and some really beautiful, even exercises and activities that you suggest. And I thought even in this book, you're breaking down what someone sees as a book. I mean, the cover does that, it's stunning. And it's like, that's something I would love to help people develop.
The dude that Puff is deep, sexy, and follows you all night long.
I believe you're looking for me.
Now streaming on Disney Plus. At last, the classic story comes to life on Disney Plus. Disney's Snow White, now streaming on Disney Plus. Transact, we've got you covered.
Because I think it's a skill, it's a habit, and you talk about habits in the book, and we're only as creative as the habits we keep, you say. How do we develop that mindset? Is there a step-by-step system, or is it something that you just start tomorrow and you now are more curious when something conflicting comes your way?
It's something you get better at the more you practice. And meditation is a great tool to quiet ourselves enough to get in touch with how we see the world. The closer we can get to what we see, that's a starting position to be able to then understand how someone else sees it. And it's interesting to be able to learn to argue the points opposite what you believe. You know, if you don't understand all sides of the story, you don't really understand the story. So it's helpful to understand the whole picture and hold all of the beliefs softly enough to be surprised and learn something new and change everything.
You know, the book is called The Creative Act, and it is about being creative more than even doing things that are creative. But have you ever sacrificed creativity for anything, on any project or in any personal endeavor in life, where creativity had to be sacrificed, or you felt pushed to sacrifice, or where you felt it was being, where there was a bit of a part of you that was like, I might have to let go?
In the world of art, I feel fearless. I feel like whatever strikes me as this is what's interesting to me, I'm good with that. It doesn't extend as strongly into life. I know people who are completely fearless in life. I'm not there yet. It's very impressive. I love it. But within the confines of creativity and making things, I know, and only I know it through experience. I started only making things I liked. Luckily, people liked them, otherwise I'd have a different job. I would still be making things because it was always my passion. I never thought it would be my work. I always knew I would make things because that's what I love to do. I thought I would have a regular, straight job to support my habit of making things. And then, miraculously, the universe allowed me to make things as a full-time thing in life. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing how we always talk about how like life imitates art or art imitates life, and why has it been harder to translate from art to life that idea of fearlessness? What are the things that you find yourself fearing in life that you find so effortless here?
This is a very deep conversation that you don't like small, but but people, but I put a, when we promote the podcast, we've got a picture of Trevor Noah, and we'll put a little clip, and people are like, I'm going to listen to this one, it's going to be so funny. Make jokes. I love to think, But more important, I love to think about things that make my head hurt. I like really difficult, complicated things that there's no obvious right or wrong, which means I love people who make me think about those things. And one of the best people who does this is Trevor Noah. You may know Trevor from The Daily Show as a stand-up comedian and best-selling author. What I love him for is for his intense ability to think about things and see things that the rest of us don't see. This episode is intense and it'll definitely make you think and it'll definitely make your head hurt. In a good way. This is a bit of optimism. Trevor, always a joy to see you and sit down with you. I've never sat down with you ever and not learned something or had my perspective changed about something because of that insane mind that you have that I so
There's a lot of pressure on our conversations now. I feel like one day we should hang out and not talk about anything new or interesting. Just so we have like a, we don't want to be
we don't like small talk.
I actually like small talk.
Do you?
Yeah, you know why? Because maybe like a few years ago, I read on how important small talk is and how in society we have diminished the value of small talk, but we don't realize that small talk is what connects us as people and big talk is what separates us. So if you have the foundation of a lot of small talk, you find similarities, you exist in the same realities, but then if you only have big talk, then you large ideas. So when you go, man, the weather, the other person goes like, I can't believe how beautiful it is. And you're like, I know, right? Or you go, the weather, it's just, it's been raining, when is it going to stop? I know, right? In that moment, it's the craziest thing ever. You have literally created reality that you share, and now it's easier to say, how do you plan to vote? It's wild.
So it greases the skids.
Yeah, it does. So I actually like small talk now.
I mean, like, you and I haven't spent a lot of time together. No. I think socially, outside of like seeing each other at conferences and things, we've only ever actually hung out once, and it was spontaneous.
It was.
Yeah. We had no plans. That was a crazy day. I've texted with you. I've never called you in my life.
Yeah.
You've never called me in your life.
I'm not a big caller.
No, you're not a big caller. And I don't know if I was driving home, and for whatever reason, I decided to call you.
Yeah.
And out of the blue, I called you, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And you said, I'm sitting here at this hotel in Los Angeles, and I had just driven past that hotel, turned around, and we had a cup of coffee. That's the only time we've ever hung out.
Yeah, and it was a great hang.
And yet, I feel like you're a kindred spirit. I love spending time with you, and it's not because of small talk. It's because every time I see you, we waste no time and go deep. And if other people happen to be at the table, they'll join in. So this is going against the small talk thing.
Yes.
I can't speak how you feel, but I feel close to you because we always go deep and find commonality in the deepness, and we abandon small talk.
But I think it's because we are of a tribe. So I think that's where small talk is crucial for people. Small talk is not necessary for everybody, but it's crucial when you don't know whether or not you're in the same tribe. So from our get-go, I was told by somebody, a mutual friend, he said, you have to meet Simon. You're going to love Simon. You and Simon, wow, you two together. So, and I trust our mutual friend, so I was like, oh yeah, I mean, let's see, if he says that we would get along, we'll get along. So it's like, I'll meet this person, and I assume that you know enough about me because we're friends, that I will get along with this person. And so now when we meet, I don't now waste time. If I met you in a different way, I think I would have been a little slower to just jump in with you. Because I'd be like,
small talk is, I understand the purpose of it, and maybe I'm sometimes awkward in groups and introverted. I'm not good at small talk. And I start with, like, my opening is a yes or no question, which is been here before? Yeah. And then my mind goes blank, panic starts to happen. I'm the same as you. Right, but I genuinely love doing the things that I'm not good at, and then trying to get comfortable in the spaces that I'm uncomfortable. And so what I would actively try and do, like my first instinct when I walk into a room is to find a corner. Yeah.
That's my first instinct.
Or find somebody I know, or a corner. Either one of those is fine.
Corner immediately.
Agreed.
And then I enjoy the room.
Or a buffet. You'll find me by the buffet because I can just disappear and just fill up a
You
plate.
just go
of food.
peruse the
I go-
food.
I'll fill up a plate.
Oh, okay.
But
But
it
you
gives
just go stand
No,
at the
no. Yeah, just in my mind is it gives me something to do that doesn't look like I'm awkwardly trying to not engage.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm just trying to get food.
Okay,
Which I am.
Yeah.
And then I can sit down and eat.
Yeah, that's my instinct.
Yeah.
But I realized over time, I was like, okay, I asked myself a question. I was like, all right, Trevor, why are you uncomfortable? I was like, well, I'm uncomfortable because I assume that people don't want to talk to me, and I assume that I'm taking up unnecessary space, and I assume that these people will reject me, and I assume. So based on all those assumptions, and through a lot of therapy and I guess a little bit of introspection, I started realizing I'm making assumptions about how the world sees me before the world has told me how it sees me.
Yeah.
So I just take a moment to see if the opposite is true. And then what I try to do as much as possible, which is hard, and you and I do talk about this, is I don't make it about the outcome. So I don't go, if I go speak to people, they will like me, or if I go speak to people, I'll become friends with them. I just walk in and I think to myself, all right, try your best, just have a small talk conversation with this person. And I'll walk in and I'll go, wow, those are really cool shoes. And the person's like, oh, thank you. And then I'm like, why did you choose those shoes for this outfit? And then they'll go, oh, well, you know, it's actually funny. And you'll be shocked at people and you get into the world and you're like, oh, this is an interesting party. You know, I'm awkward. And then they'll be like, oh, I have fun here. I know. It's amazing how the world is not oftentimes what you think it is. It's just what you've told yourself it is. Because I always wonder what it's like for somebody like you. People consume so much of you, whether it's your writing, whether it's your videos, whether it's like, I wonder how many times people don't give you the opportunity to stop or have a middling conversation because they just jump straight into like a conversation,
which is actually, as an introvert, it's actually been very helpful.
oh, you like that?
It's been very helpful because I'm no longer required to start conversations. And people are very nice when they come up to me. But what's interesting, and you sort of just touched upon this, which is they have assumptions about who I am, what I like, what I do, how I'm going to live my life because they judge me through my work. And for example, people think that I've read every book and that I read every book, right? And they talk to me with that assumption. They're like, anyway, this book, I'm sure you've read it. You know, they'll literally say that. And the thing that I held a lot of shame for many years, and I never was public about it until pretty recently, is I read no books. I have seriously bad ADHD. I started a lot of books. I finished one book, excluding having to read my own, because I had to. But I've only read one book I read my entire life, and that was Da Vinci Code, which is so good. But I struggle to read. And so people just assume because I write things and I talk about things that I just voraciously consume books.
Yes.
And I hear people talk about incredible judgment. Like people who don't read,
Yeah.
I'm curious what misperceptions people have about you because of the persona they have of you.
I'll say this. Everyone's assumption of me is based on the
What's up? You coming with it?
So I realize I don't have
Okay, we should do one.
So South Africans, I think, have like the best idea of who I am. Their understanding of me was formed
She'll choose it for you.
through like a sort of natural relationship. I host
The thing is, I'm only available 1 o'clock.
stand-up comedy. Was in interviews or whatnot. So people had an idea of who this person is.
Did you have fame in South Africa before you
Yeah. Like I always tell people, I go like, South Africa is my country in that way. I'm lucky that I have that as my country. You know?
You must make an appointment, brother.
Like a solid idea. A lot of Americans only have Danish
With me.
So they have this
Make an appointment with me.
Some schools do.
Where are you from?
You know? And I've learned this by meeting people.
I'm staying at
It's like, it always comes in the form of like a backhandedish compliment.
What time
which I
you
still
leaving?
appreciate.
Oyster
You know,
Bay.
someone will come up to me with a firm handshake and they'll go, you know, I didn't expect to enjoy
No, you get time,
you
man.
said because I don't agree with a lot of your politics.
So I must come back at 1
I gotta say,
let's say
I really enjoyed your piece.
Let's
It
say
was good. It was
12
that was
o'clock.
really good. Thank you. And I'm like, oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed. I'm even impressed that as a person you are able to see beyond what you thought you
I think that's a high compliment.
So there's some people who see me as like a hyper partisan political person who only exists in one world. You know, one of the craziest ones that happened to me is I was in Miami and I was in a strip club for a friend's bachelor party, And some guy in the strip club walks past me and he looked at me in the eye and then he's like, Donald Trump, 2034! That's literally what he screamed at me. And then he looked at, and I could see he was looking at me.
Yeah.
Like he thought it was going to shatter my world.
Yeah.
And I looked at him and I was like, and? And he said, do you hear what I said? Trump 2024! I was like, okay. And he said, yeah, what do you think about that? I said, my friend, we're in a strip club right now. The last thing I'm thinking about is a presidential candidate. And I said, you need to ask yourself what your priorities are. If you're thinking about Donald Trump while you're in a strip club. I was just like, what are you doing? But then I understood it. I was like, all right, you distilled me to this. So I think people have...
So they misperceive you as being partisan.
Some people think I'm only political. Some people think I'm only partisan. Some people think I'm only comedian.
But what about your personality? Like
it still depends.
Like I said, like the fact that people think
some people think I'm only argumentative. Some people think I'm only affable. But it all depends on where they've seen it.
Because the other frequent one that I get is people think I'm very organized. Like if you come to my house,
I can see that though.
If you come to my house is much like my brain, which is it's filled with shit. Like, and I mean, like I love art, and I like if there's an empty wall,
yeah,
I'm filling it. Like there's no empty walls. And like there's color, there's stuff, there's piles. I'm not organized. A friend of mine used to call me a surface abuser. if there was a horizontal surface anywhere near me, I would fill it. And it not necessarily in an organized way. Like papers, piles of papers, bowls of things. So like my dining room table, I go through these phases where it gets to the point where you can't see that I have a dining room table, and I'm like, I hate this, and I like.
Four to go, Sana.
When people think I'm super
Eyeball.
and I just think it's really funny, like the impression that people have of me judged through the work.
Yes.
And I wonder if you have the same experience, which is I think that's part of the appeal that people have for my work, which is when they discover that I'm not an Ivy League school educated, read everything like a book a day, or that I'm actually more normal and average. That I think that's one of the reasons I think people relate to it, which is I'm not that thing that they think that I am. And I wonder if it's the same for you.
I actually think it's the other way around for me, funny enough. So I think what will happen sometimes is people have, and this is not unique to me, people have a misconception about comedians. I think a lot of people think that comedians are like non-stop goofing clown people. Do you know what I mean? They think we're just like walking around from room to room like, but in reality,
it's depression.
That's what they think. It's a navigation of depression.
I'm sorry, it's
a navigation.
That's a lot of depression.
Yeah, so what it is, funny enough, is it's like, so people will meet me sometimes and they'll be like, someone once said to me, they were like, you're a lot more fun on TV. And I said, yes, I'm sitting in an airplane right now. We're all quiet. You think I'm just going to be turning to all our passengers and be like, well, let me tell you about the time? No, we're on an airplane.
Anybody here from Cleveland? Anyone? I think this is the sort of funny thing about show business, right? Which is they associate your character with who you are.
Yes, but the thing is, it's one side.
Because you're a comedian, it's one side, so they want you to be funny all the time.
Yes, it's one side of it.
Yeah.
And I try to explain this to people who, if they're curious enough to ask a question, they go, hey, you're a lot more quiet than I thought. You seem a lot more introspective, or you seem, I go, yeah, because what I'm expressing is the culmination of what I've consumed, but I need to consume. So I spend most of my time quiet. I spend most of my time observing. I spend most of my time listening, actually.
My experience of you is, and again, a few times, is you're exactly the same. And it's one of my favorite things about you. Which is
my personality.
When I see you on TV or on a stage, I'm like, that's what he's like on the stage and off camera.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why, though, for me. There's a thing that I experienced a very long time ago when I was first starting comedy and stand-up and all of these things, where this was in South Africa. I bumped into some people who were comedians.
I'm finally doing a tattoo.
Like a nice guy image and all of it. And then I met them, giving them a compliment. What a mean asshole. Like the way they treated people. But then this person was like, well, it's me. You know, Finally. That sucked. And beyond the moral judgment of it, I remember thinking to myself, it must suck to have to constantly pretend to be someone and then have to act like the person you're pretending to be. That's what I often do. So what I did was, even for like a comedy, I wanted to be able to get on stage and even tell the audience, I made terrible mistakes. Not have them go, we came for that person, not this person. But my goal was to give you the best That's how I met my best friend with my friends, making everyone laugh. That's how I am with like a group of people thinking and doing crazy concepts that I get. That's the best of me. So what I need to do is put myself in a space where I can sort of aim for the best. And then if I don't hit it, I don't hit it, but you get what I'm saying. Describe it. Yeah, so I don't exist as one.
You have an uncanny self-awareness. You notice the patterns and the absurdities in your own life. And I think when you talk about them out loud, sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're interesting, but I think what they do is the ways in which you found to navigate life or understand yourself are also valuable to us. And they're valuable to your friends, right? Because you're seeing things that the rest of us are missing. So, like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned that have helped you navigate the world that you think have had value in the lives of your friends or of others?
I think the biggest thing I learned that has given me the most reward has been consideration. I'm not always able to execute on it, as in like I don't always make the best decisions, I don't always make the right decisions. Sometimes I don't know at the time, or sometimes I do. But I do know I always work from a place of consideration.
Explain what that means, I'll give an example.
When I was growing up, my mom drilled into me, through her actions as well, not just through her words, that we were always to consider others. Always, 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 always. So, like, everywhere my mom went, on like the routes that she would drive to work, to church, to you name it, every single homeless person knew her. In like a wonderful way. You know, they'd give her a nickname, they'd be like, oh, Mamzo, which means like hey, a nickname version of like Mama, you know? I was like, hey, Mamzo, hey, how are you? Hey, Mamzo, hey, I need shoes, hey, Mamzo, like, and they like know her, and they know her in like a human way. It was really interesting to me. But she would just consider. We would be lucky enough to eat out at like a, you know, always when I was growing up.
Yes.
Sometimes we would. And she would say to me, stop eating, she'd be like, before. She said, let's save that this the guy on the way home. And we would do that. And I was a kid watching. And she would go, there's an old man who's our neighbor. His grass is getting too long. We must go help him cut the grass. I was like, this lady is insane. We're gonna cut somebody else's grass? Is he paying us? No, he's not paying us. We're just doing this. He didn't even ask us, by the way. He didn't even seem to appreciate that we were going to do it, by the way. And I remember this one really sticks with me prominently because she said to me, I said, why are we doing this? Like genuinely, this is just torture. And she said, by considering others, you are also able to consider yourself. And she said, if this man doesn't cut his grass, you know what's going to happen? There's going to be rats in his yard. And she said, and do you know where the rats go? They're going to come to our house as well. And so she said, I'm cutting his grass for him, but I'm also cutting his grass for us. And so we can live in a world where we say, we don't cut grass for other people. Or we can live in a world where we say, if I'm able to, I'll cut their grass, so I also don't experience the rats. And so she said, so we are able, so I'm going to cut that grass. And I was like, I still don't know about this. But, you know, and you know this, I mean, better than most people, but the modeling that a parent shows, like the things they show you, for good or bad, you learn. It's very loud and very big, but she knows that. You know, she knows that she's even embarrassing for me when, you know, when I'm like a kid in high school, she's like, oh, your mother embarrasses you. Even that for me, I think was a beautiful thing to experience as a child, because it showed me that she at least considered how she was affecting me. Now she didn't change it. You know, she was like, oh, you must be so ashamed. Oh, you look at your mother, I come in, I'm dirty, and the car is horrible, and oh, you must be so ashamed. Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I know she wouldn't change it, but at least I knew.
Yeah, she was aware.
Yeah, and so I think that for me has been the biggest thing?
It's a nice one. The alternative is so funny. I'm just playing the cutting the grass example, which is, we don't help the neighbor cut the grass. The rats come, and then we scream and yell and call the authorities so that he'll deal with his rat problem.
Yeah.
And the irony is like a little bit of generosity, a little bit of kindness to your mother's point of view, a little bit of consideration.
Yeah.
And this is a theme that comes up almost every time you and I talk, which is community.
Yeah.
And that's all that is. I think it's funny when people have less in lower income neighborhoods, people sit on the front porch and raise each other's kids.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you have wealth, you move in the backyard and you sue your neighbor because their branches are hanging over your fence. And it is amazing how when you have less, community is survival, right? Because both parents have to go to work and we can't afford childcare. You can rely on the neighbors, right? And whereas when you have all the luxuries and you can afford all of the help, you don't know the names of your neighbors because you don't need to.
Yeah.
And if we look at the society we live in now, where we feel so closed off from everybody, because this has become the American dream, which is to go to the backyard and block everybody else off. That we become so insular that we now are desperate for that feeling of community and belonging, and we're sort of struggling to find it and looking for anywhere to get it.
Yeah.
And you see it on the political left and on the political right, whether it's anti-Israel or anti-vax. Like, I'm gonna latch onto anything I can that makes me feel good about belonging to some sort of community, and you get all the feels, and then I feel like my life has purpose, and I'm making good friends, and I'm sacrificing and all these things, but for the fact that it won't last. Like, these aren't lifelong commitments to something.
Okay, so here's what I think it is. I don't think that those things are unnatural. I don't think that it's zero sum. I don't think it's going to be one or the other. People will always have their politics. People will always gravitate towards certain issues. People will always form and find different alliances and allegiances. This is the human experience, right? I think the thing that's different now is we have fewer spaces where we blend all of those worlds into something else. Does this make sense? So I think one of the things we're losing as time moves is we're losing community spaces where
a place to come together.
Us being part of church. Yeah, but even not church, because I'm saying church is like also an extension of it. I think what it is it's a space where people are allowed to be and are expected to be regardless of how they think or regardless of what they choose. Because the choice has sort of been made for them. Okay? So I often think to myself, one of the greatest gifts and curses a person can get is the ability to leave their hometown. Because you leave your hometown and now you choose to go live somewhere else. When you've chosen to go live somewhere else, you're now going to encounter other people who've also chosen to go, but they didn't choose to live next to you, and you choose to live next to them. And so now you go, I hate my neighbor. I wish they would move. I hate my neighbor. I need to move. I hate this neighborhood. I need to get out. I hate this neighborhood. I wish they would change it. But you exist in a state of constantly wishing for the thing or the people around you to change because you believe it's possible.
Right.
But there's very few people who have that same expression about like where they're from.
Oh, that's such a great insight.
Do you understand?
Home is home.
You just go like, hey man, this is what it is. So you go, where are you from? I'm from a little town in the middle of wherever.
Yeah.
And I go like, what? You go like, oh yeah, Jimbo. Yeah man, Jimbo's like this and he's like that. And actually, oh Mary, I don't like Mary because she's always saying these things to my mom.
You don't wish for them to move. You don't
hear people say that. I wish Mary would move. Move where? Move where?
This is such a great insight.
Move where?
Which is the blessing and curse of basically what an urban center is.
Yeah, because
which is there's too much choice.
Yes, and the main thing is you have been told there is a choice of community. And I think what it does is it fundamentally undermines our belief or our ability to understand that you can coexist with people you don't agree with.
Right.
Because now you cannot exist with them.
Right.
So I say this to my friends all the time, and I think you know this about me away from mics and cameras. I encourage friends to bring up the things that they don't agree about because your friends you trust, your friends you love, your friends are a community that you know want the best for you.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to have discussions where you don't agree, because then you can always fall back on the things that you do agree on, right? You can have what I call like healthy fights. And so I'm still friends with my friends who are pro-Israel. Some people don't like that about me. They go like, well, how could you? Then I go like, yes, but also how could I not? Then I'm also friends with my friends who are pro-Palestine, and then my pro-Israel friends are like, how could you? Then I go like, I understand why you say that. I go, how could I not? Because I fundamentally believe, genuinely, whether it's at the level of leadership, or whether it's at the level of you in your life, if you cannot find a way to exist despite the things you are disagreeing on, and because there'll be many of them, and some are like the most extreme and some aren't. So please don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about kumbaya. I'm just saying there are many things where you sort of have to accept. And so when I was growing up in South Africa, and we were living at my grandmother's house in Soweto, black people couldn't leave Soweto. It wasn't like a thing. This is the southwestern township. This is where you've been put by the apartheid government. You cannot leave it. So what do? You live. You know your neighbor always plays music loud on a Saturday morning when they're cleaning their street. Oh man, you just know this. Maybe you complain once or twice, but you know this. You know every Friday night there's going to be a bunch of guys who drive cars that have loud exhausts. They're going to do this every Friday. They get paid, they get drunk, they do this. And the weirdest thing happened. You knew that you didn't like it, but you also accepted the reality that you were in. And I found it was like, in a weird way, more tolerable. You know what I mean? People even tolerated each other and then found a connection with each other. You could even tell shit to that person. You're like, here you come with your, man, on Friday, I don't look forward to seeing you. The guy will be like, Baba, don't talk about my car like that. Why are you? It's like, yeah, man, you guys with your cars, or you with your radio, or you with your... I don't know how to explain it, but there's something necessary, in fact, in my opinion, in being able to say to somebody, these edges of yours, they don't work with mine, but I also have to learn that other people have edges.
So now it raises the question, how do we create that community?
I don't know that we can anymore.
Well, I think the thing that you had in common is a shared enemy, right? Which is apartheid South Africa.
No, but I take it away. I don't even think people thought that, to be honest.
No, I don't think it's conscious. I don't think we think,
yeah, but I'm saying even, that's what I'm saying. Let's take the word enemy away. But the point is, there's a, what we shared is we didn't have a choice, Simon. So that's what I'm take enemy away.
Okay. Stated a different way.
Yeah.
Yes. What you shared is you didn't have a choice.
We shared this non-choice.
And so when given no choice, you have to make it work.
If a plane crashes and everyone survives and everyone's on this island,
you have to make it work.
We cannot now say, how did you vote in the midterms?
Right.
Hey man, it doesn't matter right now.
We have to make it
I
work.
need you to get those coconuts. I need you to help us build a raft.
So what is it about our current society that we don't feel we have to make it work? That, because it's not like you can just sort of execute half the country and be like, finally, they're gone. You know? Short of, half the country moving to one part and the other half moving to another part.
Yeah.
Like, what is it about the current society that we don't feel like we have to cooperate?
Because again, that's what I mean is the gift and the curse. We got the choice.
But
it's impossible to go back. It's impossible to go back from choice. And it's one of the great
you can't ignore the apartheid government. You can't.
No. But remember,
there was a confining.
Yeah, exactly. So
there's a confining
water is a
power.
Yeah. Water is the ocean is a confining factor. We are the people of this land. And then someone builds a ship, and it's like, well, now do you want to be the people of this land? You can go somewhere else. And then what happens? Someone goes like, I'm going to go to this America place because I don't like how the English are treating.
So what's that Soweto neighborhood like now that people can leave and travel? Are they as tolerant as they used to be?
Now, what's interesting is, I would argue, because I don't spend as much time there anymore, since my grandmother passed, I don't think that it's the same. But I still think a lot of it is the same, because now the thing that's forced people is class and income. So still many people are forced.
So the confining force has changed.
That's why I say forget the force.
I understand, but there's still a confining force.
Exactly.
It went from government policy to
social economic.
Yeah,
so now the people who cannot afford to move out of Soweto still live in Soweto. And the people who've left have left. And just from my little anecdotal experiments and my anecdotal experiences, they're lonelier, they are sadder, they feel more isolated, they feel less purpose, they're caught up in like a drive that never ends, but they've just got to, and it's amazing to see they have more than every generation that came before them.
Yeah.
And wow, Simon, they are like, it's amazing to see, and I think this is the thing that's tough, is like, you can't undo getting something, right? I grew up religious, and what I love about the Bible is, whether you think it's real or not, the stories are fantastic. They truly are. Once you have eaten the apple in the Garden of Eden, you cannot unsee that you are naked. And that's like almost what God like tells Adam and Eve. He's like, oh, you guys are messed up, man. Before this, you didn't know you needed clothes. Right? And now you will spend every day thinking, I am naked. And he's like, that's why I didn't want you to eat the apple, but you guys ate the apple. And this is the paradox of choice.
The temptation is to conclude that it's money. The temptation is to say that once you have but I think that it's more like the absence of struggle. In the cases, there's some sort of hardship that, in all of your plane crash example, Soweto example, so it's like as hardship is relieved, and choice is a relief of hardship, then for some reason, our ability to cooperate and put up with each other seems to go down.
So I will agree with one part of it. I still come back to, I don't even think it's hardship. I think it's just a constraining factor. Here's why I say this. Let's say there is an island of mega rich people, and they go hang out together, and they're on this mega rich island, and they do whatever they want to do, right? It's the mega rich, they're having a great time. If they are confined or constrained in some way, they will find the same thing, and they do find it temporarily. So you've maybe been to them, I've visited them on occasion, but you get these places where people go to these like golf resorts, and it's like, wow, what is this place? And in that place, I have found people have a different level of community, a different level of enjoyment, a different level of, it's like people buzzing around on golf carts, and people meeting, and there's only the 4 restaurants, and all you can do is choose from one of the 4, and so you just rotate. Yeah, we'll do the Spanish place on Monday, and then we always love doing the Italian place on Wednesdays, and I'll have the eggs again. Yeah. Because all of a sudden you constrain. So there's this weird thing that happens. I even think about it for my life as I go, the great curse is going to be choice. The great curse is going to be knowing that you can choose. So how do you create artificial constraint for yourself to help yourself? Because I don't think it's about hardship at all. I think you can have a good time together. It's constraint. But if you cannot change the people or the situation, it changes your ability to appreciate or get along with the change or the situation.
So there's a story about a shoe salesman in Los Angeles in the 1950s. I can't remember his name, but he was a very successful entrepreneur who owned a whole bunch of women's shoe stores.
Yeah.
And a journalist asked him, "What's your secret?" And he said, 2, not 3. And they're like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "A woman comes into my store and gives her a pair of shoes, and she'll try them on. She'll say, 'Could I see that pair of shoes?' And I'll bring her a second pair of shoes. And she said, 'Could I also see that pair of shoes?' And he'll say, 'Which one would you like me to take away?'" Oh. Because what he found is when they had a choice of 3, they bought none. And when they had a choice of 2, they bought 1.
I love that.
Right? 2, not 3. And too much choice is overwhelming.
Oh man, let me do a prayer to my life. See, that's brilliant. I love when people find the nexus of how you're supposed to do it. Because I understood it as a concept, but it's a nice way to think about it for anything, really.
Yeah. And so what I started doing in my life is I've added constraint, right? And I didn't even realize it until we're talking about it now. Which is like, I've got all these options on the table. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
And what I'll start doing is I'll start pairing them up. I'll go, okay, between these 2, okay, get rid of that one. Okay, between these 2, okay, get rid of that one. Between these 2, and the choices become really easy. And then I get to the final 2, and I'm like, oh, time to that. Whereas I'm looking at 6, 5, 4, 3. And I'm like, but this one gives me this, and that one and I'm playing them off and doing sort of,
that's
pros and cons.
Yeah, I love that.
But it's the trick of the flipping the coin.
Yeah.
I don't know, should I do this or that? You might flip a coin.
Yeah. And you accept fate's decision.
Well, the question is, do you want to flip again? It's whether you're satisfied with the coin flip or not. And it works every time when people are stuck between a choice. And you force them to flip a coin, so the coin decides. And if they're happy with what the coin decides, they go with this one. And if they're unhappy, then obviously go with the other one.
Yes. Because I think we are so terrified of making the wrong choice. And rightly so, by the way. If you're living your life well, you don't want to make the wrong choice.
No.
That's why, when you book something, you go sort by price. Because you're like, okay, I'll make it a price choice. Because the world is assuming that price is most important. But if they added other ones, like Google Flights does this, they'll go, oh, here's duration. And you're like, oh, well, time is more important to me than the price. Another one will be like, sort by best value. And you're like, okay, I'll go for value. What is the price relative to what it normally costs, etc. But they at least give you something to give you like a clear distinction.
And you only look at the first few because that's whatever your hierarchy is. This idea of constraint is really important. So the question is like, how do we add constraint at a social level, at a societal level, in order to help people better find community or at least get along? And maybe that's not possible.
I think it happens naturally, whether we like it or not. Because I think it's like it's the unnatural natural order.
But it seems not to be happening right now.
Yeah, because exactly your last two words. Right now. We love everything right now in life. Everything is right now. People think this, and I don't agree. I think it always goes to where you're zooming in and where you're zooming out. Like genuinely, where you're zooming in and when you're zooming out, right? Because I think of like everything, whether it's markets or whether it's countries or whether it's the world or whether it's it's terrible, but it's the best it's ever been. But it depends on, and I will never minimize someone's experience because it's the moment that you're in. The moment that you're in is the most important moment for most of us. And then the larger thing is how you aggregate all of the moments and what you think of or how you remember them. So when I think of the right now, I go, let's use an example, which is a crazy example. I'm acknowledging this, but let's look at the United Healthcare CEO who was assassinated. I found it fascinating, and I'll throw all the disclaimers out there. So let's just say this is me using like what I like to call like my lab hands.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of this more like a.
This is a thought experiment, not a social commentary.
Yeah, forget all of it. I just go like, wow, what a crazy moment where one person was killed, and I would argue most of the country was united in their joy, elation, or frustration,
or at least being quote unquote fine with it,
schadenfreude, or whatever you
kind
want.
of weird.
Yeah. But I think to myself, wow, what just happened here?
Yeah.
I'm willing to bet if you asked all those people, let's say we did a cross section, or we selected people from all walks of life who were happy or fine or celebrating, whatever it was. We asked those people, hey, what are you happy about? Let's do it this way. You said to them separately. Do you like people get killed? No, I'm willing to bet all of them would say no.
100% against murder.
Yeah, do you like it when people don't like how the world is going, so they shoot someone? They'll be like, no, that's chaos, that's anarchy. No. And if you broke this incident down into many different things, they would basically say no to all of it. So then I found myself asking, what was it about the collective action that brought so many different people together in a country where we're constantly told people are not together, right? We're always told America's more polarized than ever. America's more polarized than ever. Like, but why weren't they polarized about this? And what's your conclusion? My conclusion is everybody is experiencing the same constraints. Whether you are a rich person or whether you are a poor person, the healthcare industry in America has constrained you to living in a world where you don't know whether you're going to be able to pay for the next bill, where you don't know if you'll go broke because of an incident, you don't know if you'll have
even just the frustration of being forced to jump through hoops.
It doesn't matter who you, and imagine that.
On the neck.
Even a rich person goes, the healthcare industry. And so in a way, in this moment, because of this action, we got to see how that constraint works. You're like, because everyone is constrained to this, they are all then having the same experience. They're coming together in ways that nobody thought people could be. And